That's enough.
This is a chance. This is a chance. I was going crazy.
Time for something.
This is the funk bass your mom will appreciate.
Getting slapped upside your head with only the best in banging funk. It's FunkFellasRadio.com.
Are we getting funky? 1, 2, 3, 4, hit it!
All right, everybody, this is DJ Medina. You're listening to Funk Fellas Radio Weekly here on Funk Fellas Radio. Today is Thursday, the 17th, and today is a great show. For me, it's a special show because I have a special individual here today that I look up to, and I'm very proud of, and it makes me very proud to be the person I am. And I have here today Nellie Myia Turtleheart LeGaspe, and she is part of the American Indian movement. She's an activist, and she's also a personnel commissioner for the city of Santa Ana. So how are you doing today? Thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm chilling.
You're chilling?
Yep.
I don't know how you're
Had a
chilling
hard
in this.
day at work.
I don't know how you're chilling in this heat that we've been having.
Because I have my AC on, that's why.
Oh, there she goes. Oh, darn you! I have an AC, but the thing is horrible. So it's like I really don't have one. That's kind of worse than not having one at all. But thank you so much for spending time with us here on this Thursday on the radio. You know, I really love so many things about you. I'm very lucky that I know a lot of other fellow natives like myself, and I want you to let the people know, because I have a lot of other natives tuned in aside from non-natives, but let them know what tribe you're from and where your ancestors come from.
Oh boy, that's a mouthful. So I am Oglala Lakota Ha Campfire, and I'm also Chiricahua Apache Bear Clan. It's a strong lineage all the way back from South Dakota and from New Mexico.
I gotta say that you come from a great group of tribes. Definitely major to me. I mean, you just think about, the same as Geronimo. You know,
Chiricahua.
A lot of people don't realize that. And I remember when we first started talking, when you said that, I automatically knew. I'm thinking to myself, I better watch out for this one, because she's going to be feisty. But, you know, I really appreciate you being here on the radio. And I make a point of it to have other fellow natives like myself on the radio, especially ones that are very active in the community, help out the people, and are really just so spiritual when it comes to respecting our ancestors and the land and whatnot. So tell me, so where were you raised and born and whatnot, and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
I sound like a movie. I was born in East Los Angeles.
I was born in East LA.
I literally was born in East LA at Belvedere Hospital. I think my dad told me it's a sober living or something like that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a building, but it's like, I don't even know the address, but it was called Belvedere Hospital
Wow.
back in the day. So I was born there, raised in El Sereno, grew up there until we moved to the San Gabriel Valley to Rosemead. And from the time I was about 8 years old, I lived there, went to elementary school, junior high school, when it was still called junior high school.
Right, yeah.
That's how old I am. And then I graduated from Rosemead High School in 81. 40 years ago this month.
I was going to try to avoid that. I was going to say you're just slightly older than me. You're just a little bit older than me, you know.
Yeah, in some circles I'm an elder.
Yeah, to me, you're an elder. I mean, you're elder just because of what you do and just all your knowledge and whatnot. You're an elder to me, so, you know, you have 100% of my respect, you know.
I'm an elder to most people I know. That's scary.
You were probably an elder to people when you were a teenager.
Yeah, that's what some of my friends say. They say that I've always been a certain way. I didn't know I was such a activist even in elementary school, but apparently I was. So
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about being an activist. I honestly believe that people are some people are born into that role in a way that it's like their calling pretty much in life. And people who are activists, you could see how even when they were children, how they had this fire in their spirit and their heart to advocate for things, to fight for things, to fight for underdog, to fight for rights and whatnot. So did you feel that you had that at a young age as well?
I didn't think of it consciously like that. It's just I'm one of those people that I see something wrong and I'll tell myself, shut up, don't say anything, and then I end up saying something because it irritates me. I've always believed that you have people that put their head in the sand and don't pay attention to things that are going on. And then there's those who get involved, but for self-serving purposes, to make money, to make a name for themselves, to have some kind of credibility. And then there's the types that will do something even when it's not popular to do, or will speak up when it's not always like, people say, oh, keep your mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
They'll speak up sometimes at the cause of their own, not I want to say demise, but it's not going to necessarily be a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's me. I speak up when other people tell me to shut up. When my inner voice says, oh, come on, Nellie, don't say anything. Just be quiet. Just let it go. Don't say anything. And I can't. And it's never been for me self-serving. It's always been for the good of somebody else. And I've had to pay for it sometimes. There's been some circumstances that almost cost me my job. Has cost me some people that I thought were friends. It's put me in the bullseye for some people. But that's okay. I don't do it for money or popularity.
Yeah, and that's one thing, to travel the road of an activist, even at a young age and going forward, and different, of course, at your age, different levels, things you can do and not do, but it is a hard road to travel because a lot of people don't understand, and then you're trying to change the present situation, the status quo, and I know a lot of people sometimes don't like change, and some people don't want to. Don't have the energy to make the change. And there's people like you who will fight for the change. It's like we need people like you. It's very important. It's very important to have people like you because not everybody can walk that way. So, at a younger age, at one point in time, did you start really moving up the whole activist part of you, and actually putting more into action?
It depends on the circumstances, because I know when I was a kid and a teenager, my friends are the ones that tell me, oh, you did this in high school and you did that. And I didn't even know up until about 15 years ago that I was in student government. Like, I didn't remember. This was in junior high school. I didn't remember. And when they showed me a picture, I was in this group picture of all those student government people, and I was one of them. I was like, me? I started laughing because I don't remember that. All I remember that gave me passion when I was young was singing. Yeah. And that's all I wanted to do was to sing. But my dad used to always tell me you have to have a backup plan. So I was always thinking of a backup plan. But as I got older, and like I got married really young. Mm-hmm. So when my kids were little, like I spent my 20s having kids. Okay. And, their father was Spanish Mexican mix, and very anti anything to do with being native, to the point where my kids couldn't even be identified as that. And it was I guess that's where I started, because he, as an adult, he was very abusive. I was married to him for 11 years. It was an abusive relationship, verbal and physical. It was a lot of drama. And during that time, I had one of my kids, my second to the youngest, had a disability, and it started evolving as he got to be about 3 or 4. And the teachers would not pay attention to me in preschool. Yeah, they kept saying that he was ADHD, And I said, no, there's something different. So long story short, I went to school. By this time I had my youngest, who was a couple of years younger than my disabled son. And I went back to school, and I got my AA degree, my bachelor's in special education and health and human services. Well, during that process, I developed a tool for evaluating kids with special needs, primarily autistic kids.
Okay.
Yeah, and so my first adult experience as being an activist was for my own child.
Yeah.
Because, and even my daughter, she's going to be 38 next month. Even with her, you know, she was quiet. She had a little bit more of a subdued personality, not like her mother. And I remember sticking up for her because she looked very native. She had native features, very strong features, and she would get really hurt when people called her Japanese, Chinese, or Asian.
Yeah.
So I would have to argue with the teachers. So I started advocating for my kids, from my daughter to, you know, my youngest. It just got to the point where, because they were different and they all looked different. So between advocating for them and their rights, they had a last name that was primarily thought to be Mexican. So people were always talking to them in Spanish or throwing them in bilingual classes, which used to piss me off. And I was just like, do you read the paperwork? Because by this time, when the kids were older, I was divorced from their father. So I changed all their paperwork to Native American because he no longer was in the picture. So I didn't have to keep that quiet. And so I was always advocating for my kids' rights as Native students, for my son with a disability, for his rights, making sure that he was given the right classroom instruction. And then I started advocating for other parents' kids within the school.
Yeah.
Next thing you knew, I became a special education rights advocate with IEPs and all that. And then with Native American rights thrown in there as well. So I've always had that personality, but it started to evolve. And, you know, I was still heavily involved with AIM during my 20s, and my kids were with me. Like, they used to go to powwows with me. They went to protests and demonstrations with me. You know, it was just, you always see Nellie and her 4 little chickies following her. So it's something it's a fire inside of me that doesn't allow me to keep my mouth shut.
Well, thank God. I thank God. I mean, it's true what you say. I mean, sometimes people who, when you have to start advocating and being an activist, is basically for your own family. I mean, I've had to do that. A lot of people don't know this as well, but same situation with me is I have two stepchildren that have autism that I raised, and not very much was out there at the time, you know, or knowledge. So I totally understand that. And of course, you know, I say this off the bat, of course, it didn't be Native American, just kind of like thrown out under the rug, you know? You know, yeah, it's just really, you know, kind of a hard thing. And, you know, so here, you know, you raising your children and whatnot. And so what you're telling me is I kind of see that there's quite a dynamic, you raising your children with, you know, of course, your ex-husband and whatnot. How did you relate to your kids in regards to their identity? I mean, how did you work around that to you know, kind of, you know, let them know that they were Native, but at the same point, you know, having to kind of watch what you had to do with your ex in regards to that?
While I was married to him, from 82 to 93. And when I left him, I was 30. I just turned 30. And so when they were little, I really did not, other than like my daughter and my oldest son, there wasn't too much opportunity for me to teach them in a broad spectrum type of way our cultures and traditions. So I found other ways to teach them. When my daughter was in kindergarten, she wanted to become a Girl Scout.
Okay.
And I'm not a big fan of the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, but I learned, and it was really a good thing because it brought me out of my shell. Because if anyone knows about domestic violence, especially back in the 80s and early 90s, there was no mandated reporting for domestic violence. The
No,
police
there
didn't follow
wasn't.
through.
No.
No. And so the fact that their dad was busy working away, it gave me an opportunity to get out of the house and do something with my daughter. And I brought the boys along with me, or my dad would watch them for me. So I started coming out of my shell a little bit and being able to share with the girls Native traditions. And it gave that exposure to my daughter as well. So I utilized that platform to teach her, and then be able to teach my boys too.
Yeah.
As time progressed and I got more involved, I just started going up what they call the leadership chain for Girl Scouts, which goes up to a district leader. And I went up through that and got more involved as a leader. Then at the same time, my younger boys were going to, my one that's disabled was going to preschool, preschool state Head Start.
Okay.
Something like that. Head Start State Preschool, there you go.
Yeah.
So he started going through that, and that program advocates parents being involved in their kids' education, as even up to making policy. So I ended up getting involved in that too. And all the same time I'm dealing with my kid's dad and his abuse at the time, but I was away from the house more. And he was able to go do what he was doing. So he didn't really care towards the end. Like, he was out of it. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, he's checked out.
it's like, so he didn't really get too involved with me. So this is like probably 80, I want to say 89 to like 92 that I got so heavily involved outside the house, PTA, everything. So I just started evolving, and I started exposing the kids and the school and the other parents to my culture, because it was still with me.
Yeah, oh, good.
And I got stronger. From it, and started coming out of my shell until I got to the point where I got brave enough to leave.
Good for you. You know, and that's the sad part, to jump on that for a second. It's sad that it took, as you know, it was what changed everything was the O.J. Simpson, the domestic violence. Everything changed after that. But you're right. Before that, they would come to the house and then you have the person who's abusing you looking you the wrong way, and you're like, do you want to press charges? And they're giving you a look. I mean, the law did not protect you the same way back then.
No, they didn't. And the thing is that I the way I left would make a great movie. Like, I tell everybody that my life, sometimes people hear it and they're like, you should write a book. I would be like a Lifetime movie, would be a miniseries. I
was going to say that, the like a burning bed or something, right?
Almost. Because when it comes to domestic violence, I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I'm what they call a 3-time survivor, because I almost died 2.5 years ago. So
yes.
That is something that I do not keep secret, because keeping secrets is what gets us into trouble.
Yes.
And so I speak openly about it. And so it didn't end in a burning bed. It basically ended with me snapping. And it was one time when he was assaulting me, and I snapped, and I beat the living crap out of him. I busted his nose, busted his eye, busted his jaw, and told him he had like 5 minutes to get out of the house, or that was it.
Good for you.
I was done.
Yeah.
That was it.
You're fed up. You already came to the end of the line.
Oh yeah, I was so done, and I didn't want, because my kid's dad often went after young girls, and he was like, he was 31 at the time when I finally left him, but he used to go after girls that were 5 or 10 years younger than him, and I was afraid he was going to do something to my daughter.
Yeah.
So it just got to the point where I knew I needed to leave.
Yeah.
And I had nothing. At that time, I had no college education. I had no employment. I had no job experience. I had nothing.
Wow.
And I just left and went out on my own and had to go on public assistance, and it was pretty heavy.
Wow.
It was probably the scariest time in my whole life, but it was less scary than being around him.
Yeah. I heard a lot of stories like yours, and each one of them is different than the other. But it's really hard to hear. I get, because I have daughters. I have a lot more daughters, and I only have one son. But just the thought of something like that happening to them, is just absolutely just makes my blood boil. I would never want my girls to go through anything like that at all. And I teach them that they never put up with that, and it should never be felt like it never meant to feel like they're in the corner and can't get out.
Yeah.
And another thing is like that comes to mind. I know it's in different situations, but the statistics really bad that how much physical abuse Native women experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's really high for our population. So when you're telling me this, I'm thinking, poor Nellie here, she was one of these statistics of another Native woman who's getting abused. I'm so sorry you went through that, but I'm really happy that you can voice that, because maybe your voice will be the one to help someone in their situation.
I can't keep quiet because it's, I try not to put judgment on any ethnicity because of what one person does.
Yeah.
When I talk about the past, the people, the men, I guess, that abused me were all of Mexican Hispanic descent. Yeah. And they weren't Native. That's nothing about them was. And it was pretty brutal. It was more about what I've come to learn now is, especially after the last time, is that I realize I do have a strong personality, and that personality, and this is feedback that I've received from close friends that have told me that I can be intimidating for those who don't know me. Those who know me know I'm a big old softie, and I'm just not one to mess with too much, because once I get to my limit, I'm done. And I'm not a violent person per se. I'm really not.
Yeah.
I don't like arguing. I don't like battling it out for stupid reasons. It's just like, it's not even worth my energy.
Yeah.
But these individuals, now I realize, and it's leading me through a lot of therapy, I realized that they had self-esteem problems within themselves.
Of course.
There was something that they were lacking. Yeah, so they tried to shut me up, to push me down. And especially when I was younger, I didn't know any better. I came from a family that was filled with secrets and shame of not wanting to know who we really were.
Yeah.
To not talk about it, to keep that under wraps. And that brings with it a pattern of behavior.
Yes.
And so my dad didn't even know. My mom and dad did not even know that I was being abused by my kid's father. I never told them. They never saw me like that.
Yeah.
I hid it. So that when I finally told my mom and my dad, they were shocked.
The total shock, exactly.
Yeah. And I remember my mom even telling me, "You're so strong. I can't imagine you going through that." Because they always told me I was feisty. I was a firecracker when I was young. But something in me allowed that behavior to happen. And I was scared. I couldn't look at people in the eyes. I couldn't, I just totally opposite of what I am now.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of it is a learned behavior from some lesson at some point in time.
Yeah.
And it's a total unlearning. And one of the biggest mistakes, or I don't know, a runoff of being a survivor of domestic violence is when you're still in it, your subconscious learns that behavior so that you start emulating it to those weaker than you. And I do not keep it a secret that my opinion was that I had a lot of bad parenting techniques with my kids.
Yeah.
And I was pretty verbally abusive, and I wouldn't hit them per se, but I would throw things in their direction.
Okay.
And it's that anger, that's rage that you don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
And once you learn how to deal with it, you can't erase the past. The past is done. All you can do is, apologize for the behavior and correct it, and don't, repeat that behavior.
Yeah. When you're going through those things, it's for anybody, I don't care who you are. It's good. The outlet's going to come out somewhere. You know what I mean? It's sometimes for people, it could be being, this, how different with their kids. Some people can go to drinking. Some people can go to this. There's always an outlet that somebody goes to let that steam out, to let that out somehow. And we all do it. We've all done it. We've all, you're human beings, but especially somebody like yourself who went through domestic violence. I mean, there's a whole tree and levels you go through when you're going through that. You know what it does to your self-esteem, what it does to your soul, what it does mentally to you, physically. I mean, it's a whole big conglomerate of things that just are bringing you down and affecting you in every possible way, even when you're not being abused at that moment. You know?
Exactly. It's one of those things where I'm blessed in that I was raised in an alcoholic home. My dad's been sober for like 37 years, something like that. But as a young person, that is something that I was exposed to. Now I've never been a drinker or a drug user or anything like that. I'm a square, like total square. And so I didn't go that route, and my outlet, my therapy was always my music, my singing, my traditions. Especially once I left their father, it probably took me about a good 10 years to really, what I call get well. Yeah. And even then, I still made bad choices, which, you know, it's just a human nature, but I still made bad choices in the people I allowed in my life, to be too close to my family, that I still made mistakes, but I kept learning. And it's like my oldest son, he's going to be 36, and he recently told me, he's like, you know, Mom, you're so cool. Like, you're in such a good place, and you're the best I've ever seen you. Like, I'm at my optimum right now. Because I've got, even though I went through that assault 2.5, almost 3 years ago, I've grown so much, even with that experience. Yeah. And it taught me a lot. And so for me, it's like, when you stop learning, that's when you're dead. And we are our children's and grandchildren's ancestors. Yep. So I have to make sure that I cure that pain. Yeah. And because there's some people like, even my dad, he recently told me, you know, there's generational trauma. Yes. And it's almost like a curse. He's like he felt he cursed me for the experiences I went through. And I had to stop him, and I told him, I do agree there's generational trauma, but once we're aware of what the trauma is, we make a choice. Yes. Of what we do with that. And I told him, I do not blame you for any of your mistakes, because you're human. Yeah. So whatever mistakes you made, I clean you from that. You have no responsibility for what I've done or what I've went through. I took that away from him because I didn't want him to carry that. My dad's going to be 83, and he's a firecracker. And
like his daughter.
And the same thing with pretty well. I see exactly where I get it from with my dad. I really do. But my kids, in their own, they're all, I shouldn't even say kids, they're all in their 30s.
They'll always be your kids. I'm always going to call my babies. Yeah.
They are. And the thing is that I don't have a close relationship with all of them. Something that I'm also publicly, I've talked about, because I do talk about it when I talk to families and survivors of domestic violence, that my oldest daughter, I have not seen her or talked to her in 14 years. And she's got 7 kids. My oldest grandson is going to be 19. And it used to cause me so much pain. But now it's kind of like she made her choice. And for whatever reason, I give her a high five in the fact that she was able to walk away from me. Yeah. And she was able to create her own family and her own history without me. Yeah. And I have respect for that, because I could never do that. Yeah. Like, that was something I could never do to my parents. Yeah. Now, she's also a different generation where they just kind of back away from their parents. But, you know, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to walk away in order to get your own peace and, peace of mind. Yeah, and your own momentum too. To get your own momentum in your life, you know. Yeah. Exactly, and I'm okay with it. And it's like sometimes when people say, "How are you okay with it?" It's because our kids are not our property. Yeah. They are here for us to guide them and teach them as best we can. And sometimes they just have to go out on their own to do their thing. So I'm okay with that. Yeah. You know, I'm very close to my oldest son and my youngest son. My son that's disabled is actually with his father. That's a whole nother talk show or radio show. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But I respect their choices. and I don't fault them for that. My daughter could pick up the phone tomorrow and say, "Hey, Mom, how's it going?" And I'd be fine. What's up? You know?
Yeah.
It's like I don't feel the need to talk about the past. It's something that if they want to, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
I just want them to be happy and to know their traditions. Sadly, my daughter doesn't, and my grandkids don't. But there's nothing I can do about that. So it is what it is.
Wow. Talk about. I what you're saying to me resonates a lot with me. Me and you have kind of the similar things. This show's about you, so I'm not gonna go in that. But oh yeah, the one thing that I gotta say that resonates with me that I kind of go back for a second and then move forward is, I definitely know how that is to have a spouse who's not very keen on the fact that you're Native American. A lot of people know this. I'm sure my mom's tuning in. She always likes listening to shows. She knows very well. My ex-wife was, of course, her family was from Mexico. She was born here. She was a first generation, and she absolutely was embarrassed of the fact that I was Native, and she was embarrassed of the fact that my daughter, more so than my son, but my daughter looked very Native. Boy, it just came out. I think what it was is that she was so bothered with it that, the powers that be, when she was born, she took on a very Native, extremely Native look. And I had to go through that. She always would put me down for that, and she would, kind of put them down as well. And there's a stigma that a lot of Mexicans have about natives, about Indians, and and it's very bad. It's brutal. And to me, when I hear that talk, it's just reminiscent of a conquistador. It's just like you can just see that here you have someone with a Spanish background and absolutely cannot stand Indians and think that they're beneath them. And it's a horrible thing. So when you were telling me a lot of this, it was resonating. And I wasn't able to get my kids to be able to really talk about being Native or anything until after me and their mom divorced. So when you were telling me that how you were doing that, and I'm sure that after the separation, you were able to really push a lot of that on them and kind of tell them, hey, this is your culture too. This is who you are, and this is your identity, and so that resonates with me, and I definitely understand what you went through on that, and it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing, that to be with somebody who thinks that it's almost like they think less of you, and they're supposed to be your spouse,
Yep, that's exactly how it was. My kid's dad told me that I was a spoiled brat, and that the world wasn't all about me. So whatever I wanted, he was going to make sure I didn't get. My second husband was. It's funny because he, for whatever reason, he was Mexican from Brownsville, Texas.
Okay.
And he was a passive aggressive. He never did anything abusive to me. In fact, what he did is he grew his hair out and pierced his ears and started looking like he was Mr. Indio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what we used to call him, because he just suddenly went from, looking like a regular Joe Blow Mexican guy to, we called him Mr. Indio. That's the nickname that my friends and, my close friends gave him, because it was like a joke. Because his family, I'm really close to them still. In fact, his nieces, they're my nieces and nephews, so they still call me, what did they say, that Tia? Mm-hmm. They still call me that. And I've been divorced from him for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And, but I'm still close to them and I love them dearly, but it's just him, that person in himself. It was just, like he just took the persona on to whoever he got with. So with me,
Yes.
He grew long hair and got his ears pierced. My friends used to tell me, my close friends would tell me, hey, every guy you get with, he ends up looking like an Indian later. They grow their hair long, they pierce their ears, they get tattoos. And I stopped and I looked back and I was like, oh my God, that's true. I had to laugh about it. And yes, majority of my significant relations have been with Mexican men, and it's always been bad. It's really been like totally bad, and because their family, like the second one was cool, but like other ones, especially my ex, his family, they liked me because I'm lighter complected because I don't go in the sun.
Yeah.
If I go in the sun, I get really dark.
I saw your old pictures that you put up. Definitely, you can get the sun going on you.
Oh yeah, I get really dark, but the thing with the sun, it kind of ages you too.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Yeah. Even I stay away from it for that reason.
Yeah, I'm not about walking around with wrinkles that have wrinkles and age spots that have age spots. So they'll catch up with me eventually, but I'm not gonna invite them.
You're
in
not going to
early.
help it out, right?
No, no. but it's not to say that. See, with the way I was raised is that had a lot of discrimination and prejudice towards me because I was, because I am Native and I
Yeah.
am proud and I don't. How do you say? I don't try and conform. Like there was a period of time I remember in high school that I tried to conform to with all the Mexican girls I went to high school with. Where I went to school was majority white, Mexican and Asian, and so I had a hard time fitting in. And I'm not a competitive person. I never have been. That's just not my nature. I'm more of a go with the flow kind of person. And so I got a lot of prejudice and discrimination from the Mexican kids in school, especially the girls, that just didn't like me.
Yeah.
Because, I was just me and I didn't conform to how they were.
Yeah.
And at one time I tried to, I was so bad I even shaved my eyebrows. I remember that I had the Sharpie eyebrows.
You're like, I'm going to fit in.
Oh yeah, I was. That's really what it was about. Is I was trying to fit in. I even remember wearing the jeans with the, oh my God, I can't remember. They had this special kind of belt they had that we made in art class with leather. And so, I tried to jump with that crowd when I was like 14, 15, and it just didn't fly with me. It was just like, it seemed so unnatural. And when I walked away, those people just had a problem with me.
Yeah.
And so I just remember always trying to fit in. So as I got older, I have friends from all different ethnicities. And that's one thing that I could say, that I don't pick just one type. But when it came to my personal relationships, for whatever reason, I went towards Mexican men. And I used to say I had a radar for the ones that were bad. And it's not to say that they're all bad. It's just the certain ones I got with, they were bad.
Well, I'm gonna jump in for a second, because I mean, this is what I see, and this is what I've learned is, we talk about, ancestral trauma, whatever. You have to realize that Mexicans as a whole, about a good 75 to 80% of them are, mestizos. They're half Spanish, half Indian. The thing is that in Mexico, the Spanish would just pound that out of you. The native, the Indian, I mean, it was about conquering and pound that out of you. So, of course, even today, you turn on channel 34 and all these Mexican stations, Spanish stations, what do you see? Blonde hair and blue eyes. That's pretty. Blonde hair and blue eyes. But yet when you go into Mexico, what do you see? Who are the poor people? The more native you look, the more poor you're going to be.
Exactly.
That's how it is. And to me, that's what it is. That's why I think, that's why it gets passed down. And that's why I think there's just this whole thing that a lot of Mexicans have towards Indians, and they're raised to just automatically, it's a bad thing, lazy. They come up with all these things. They're drunks, they're this, they're that, they're this and that and whatever, but it's just been pounded in. And here they are putting down natives, but yet they don't realize that they have this blood running through their veins as well. You know?
And I think the important thing for those listening to understand is that when I'm speaking about my experience with Mexicans, I'm 58. So I grew up in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And so that's a different generation, a different time mindset. And so I realize that not everybody's the same. And I know that there's a new movement of people that are Mexican calling themselves indigenous, calling themselves Native Americans. And I don't even try and correct people, because to me, that's not my job. No. My job is to represent Native people in the best way I can, and people of color.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I am very strong about, that I truly believe in our support group for AIM totally is behind all people of color. We've marched for May Day, immigration reform, for stopping for Asian hate. Anything that has to do with somebody being discriminated against, we're right there to make sure that they're heard and they're represented. Even if it's not us, we're going to find folks to help them. That's what we're about. Yeah. And so I'm talking about a different mindset. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that in order for us to really understand each other, we have to understand where we come from.
Yes.
And so I tell folks, especially young people, be proud of who you are, how you see yourself, but understand those who came before you and laid the groundwork for how you have that freedom to say how you feel.
Yeah.
And understand where they came from.
Yeah.
Because my experience is not the same as someone who's in their 20s and 30s.
Exactly.
It's totally different.
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, with me, look at the experience I had with my ex-wife. I mean, she's the same generation that me and you are, you know, and of course, look at that. I don't hear that as much in millennials and with Generation Z, but with the Generation X that I am and further out, you feel that. Yeah. It's very different. Yeah. And it's very disheartening. It's very disheartening, and it's so hurtful. And a lot of people are listening. You have to realize that here's a little piece of information I did share on the radio a couple times, but you have to realize that it was pretty much illegal for Native Americans, Indians, to practice their culture, religion in this country until the late 70s.
Yeah, well, that's a good topic to segue on. So that's one of the things that a lot of folks don't understand, that the freedom we have right now of being able to dance at powwows or gatherings, to be able to practice ceremonies, all that didn't come back until, God, I want to say the first big powwow that I went to was probably, oh my God, maybe 89?
Yeah.
90?
Yeah.
And before that was Southern California Indian Center over in Fountain Valley. They used to have their powwows, and it was about 30-something years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe even more, but that was the closest you could get to your ceremony.
Yeah.
So the only way I can relate it to people is that people that are Christian or Catholic, imagine if the only time you could practice your religious, spiritual practices, you had to travel 3 or 4 hours away to get to it.
Yes.
And maybe just once a month. That's all you could do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's how we were. That's how it was for us. It was blanketed secret. It was not something that you could be proud of. I talk to folks now and I tell them, now it's Inde Bear Indian. And we don't say Indian, we say Indian.
Yeah.
So it's NDN.
Indian, yeah.
Indian. And so now it's the in thing. And when I've had some young people, that's why I don't really post anything on TikTok or anything like that. I just kind of like what do they call it? A voyeur. I just watch.
Yeah, you're a watcher, huh?
Yeah, I just watch.
Just like my mom's the same way. My mom's the same way. She always sends me links to everything in the middle of the night.
And I just do that because I want to see what's out there. And there's even some people my age and older that I've seen them on these social media things, and they post stuff, and I don't agree with what they're posting, but I'm not going to sit there and blast them. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to even tell them personally, because they're either older than me, or you know what, they have the right to their opinion. So who am I to say anything? That's the one thing that people misunderstand about the American Indian movement, is that like we're the seer and sayers of all things. Our job is to make sure that First Nations, Native American, Indigenous rights are protected, religious rights are protected, religious arts are protected. And a lot of the laws and rules that are out there, yes, they come from the white government, the colonial government, but that is the law of the land that we have to live by, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. And so the federal definition of Native American Indian there's actual definition. And it says who can sell our art, who can sell the religious pieces. You're not even supposed to sell sage or sweetgrass. You're not supposed to sell that, but people sell it all the time.
Yeah.
When it comes to having Native American art, you cannot call it Native American Indian art unless it actually is produced by an actual Native American. Federally or state recognized tribal member, period.
Yeah.
There's laws that govern that. So it's really hard, because back in the day when I was in my 20s, 30s with AIM, we used to go into these new age stores that were selling sage and tobacco or Native American artwork, and they were new age. We would take the stuff from them. We would rip it off from them. We'd tell them, screw you, you're not, because they were selling things that they had no right to be selling.
Yeah.
People were not allowed to sell chanupas, which are pipes, sage or sweetgrass at powwows. We used to pull it from vendors when they would sneak it out to sell it. We would only let Native American vendors sell at powwows. And if they did not have a tribal enrollment or tribal recognition, they could not sell at powwow. That was standard practice.
Which I agree with. I agree with that 100%.
It has changed. It
know.
has changed
I know.
over. Cause I used to put powwows on all the time, and it got to the point where it became so commercial. And there's an old story that elders used to tell about, if you don't appreciate things, it'll be taken away from you one way or the other. And what I see that COVID did was it, and I'm only talking about Native people, it took our powwows away.
Yes.
Ripped them away. And I really hope they don't come back the way they were, which was full on contest, making money, charging exuberant amounts of money for vendors to be there, charging a lot of money to enter.
Yes.
All the old customs that we had and traditions of gathering. Because, like I said, imagine for folks listening, you could only get together with your family for a barbecue and a get together and hang out and share your stories. We have to get permission. You have to get permit. To do that.
Yeah.
That's what powwows are to us. And so it got taken away. And so I'm hoping that it comes back a little bit more traditional.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
You are one of many who has told me the same thing about that. Almost saying like, I hope they start changing things with it. I mean, and I know a lot of people who are listening don't understand a lot of like what the powwows are about and whatnot, and but for us it's a great time to get together. It's like everybody's been separated as a way everybody can come together and be one again. Sometimes you can't. Everybody lives in different places and whatnot. That's what it was for. That's what it was about. For families to come together and able to spend time with each other and able to talk with each other, practice customs and whatnot, and that's what it's supposed to be for. And I see definitely a lot of them become very commercial.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to mention. I'm not going to mention any powwows around here that I've seen that with, but oh yeah, I've seen that. I'm thinking to myself, this is not how it was supposed to be.
One of the biggest powwows that used to go on in Albuquerque, New Mexico, was a Gathering of Nations.
Yes,
and
yeah.
That one, I never got to go, but I had a lot of friends that went, and I was supposed to go last year, and it would take hours for everybody to go into grand entry. It looked like a huge long snake. But
wow.
that powwow in the end was so commercial, and it was run by, like, they would get natives involved in actually like judging and in helping to MC and stuff, but the actual coordinators, a lot of them weren't even native.
Yeah.
And that's something else that as native people, we have a problem with what I call posers.
Yeah.
Which people who are not, but they take on the persona of a native person. Remember that story a few years back of the lady who was white and she posed as a black person, and she was the president of the ACLU up north?
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like that, where we get people that will put on the persona of what they think a native person looks like and sounds like. And I always, crack up with, like, they'll even go to the extent of putting the makeup on and the hair or lack of makeup, and they dress a certain way, and they do overkill with everything. It's like, we love our bling, our turquoise, but there is such thing as too much.
Too much, yeah. Yeah.
and so it's like they're trying a little too hard, and they'll even don this, what they think is a native accent, which there's over 500 tribes and over 500 dialects of language.
Yeah.
There's not one language. And so there's not one type of accent that a native person will have. So I come across those people, and I just kind of like try to leave my sunglasses on so they don't see what face I'm really making.
Yeah, what's funny is this one comes up. I know my mom, if she's listening, she's gonna remember this. And one of my, a lot of people don't know, I'm a Hashiman. I'm a Hashiman on my mom's side. So we were at one of the tribal gatherings, and some of them, I think they're members just to say they're a member. They're not really part of anything else, just to say I am. And she came. She was. I'm not gonna knock anybody for this. She was blonde haired and blue eyed and everything. And she came to our meeting, and she was dressed and a Pocahontas outfit that was from probably from Party City. I was absolutely appalled. Like everybody was looking at her like, what are you doing? And nobody had enough. No one said nothing. I think it was just so bizarre that you're like, you know what? I don't think any of us can say nothing. But everybody was giving her such a look like, is this a joke? Like, really? And she came dressed that way, and it was literally a Pocahontas outfit from Party City for Halloween.
Well, you know what some of that comes from. So a lot of that of not saying anything, that has to do with old customs and traditions, because one of the main things that I've always thought that is problematic with Native people, especially older traditional Native people, that we have a tendency to be a little too quiet.
Yes.
And we don't say anything because we don't want to offend anybody. And that comes from historical trauma.
Yes.
Because to speak up is to draw attention and is to be persecuted.
Yes,
because,
exactly.
You know,
exactly.
like I said, we've only been around outspoken since, you know, let's say the mid-late 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're still babies when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Like, what I get frustrated is that you see other ethnicities moving up, whether it be in world politics, in Hollywood, whatever it is, of getting their rights. But here we are, the first people of this land, and we're not there yet. We're just barely getting there with our Senate representatives, House representatives and senators and people that are getting involved in politics in different areas. We're barely starting to hit that ceiling and trying to crack it for ourselves.
Oh, black Americans are way ahead of us on this.
Oh, heck yeah. And Mexican Americans are, and Asian Americans are. They're all ahead of the game.
Yeah.
My goodness, Southeast Asian Indians, they're way ahead of us.
Yeah.
You know, as here we are, we're still trying to fight for our attention to where we're not even in mainstream Hollywood. Every time one of my friends, I used to do a lot of movies and extra work. And barely now I'm seeing some of my friends that I was doing extra roles like 25 years ago, they're starting to get their recognition.
Wow.
And it's still little steps, baby steps.
Yeah.
But it's fighting for that. And we're still fighting against Hollywood's vision of what Native women, specifically Native women, look like. They think we're all 100 pounds with, you know, no curves and long hair and dark skin and just, you know, timid and little Pocahontas image, that image.
Yeah.
And we're nothing like that.
Not at all.
We come in all shapes and sizes, and you know, we're fiery and feisty. And most of us, we're gonna, like, we used to, Native women, we crack a joke and we say that most Native men don't want a Native woman because we're hard to deal with.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say this too. A lot of people don't realize, and I'm gonna, because I want the people to kind of know this, is that a lot of people are thinking that a lot of the cultural ways that women are looked at, Native women are looked at, is the same way as a Spanish or a Mexican will look at a woman. It's very different. The woman in the Native American woman is looked at differently because they're respected. They have a different the men respect them in a different way. There isn't the way Mexican men or Spanish men or white men treat their women is not the same way Native treat their women. And the way they're looked at, they're the givers of life. They have children. They have a whole different place. In some tribes, the man goes and lives with the wife and her family. You know,
yes.
It's different. It's a different. A lot of people don't realize. I had to jump in because I don't think a lot of people know that a woman holds a very special place in the Native family. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I know some people are probably going to wonder about that.
That's the biggest misconception. When I talk to folks about the difference between northern and southern tribes and then South American tribes, is that a lot of South America is patrilineal. The men are in charge.
Yeah.
They're the ones who set the tone, set the rules, and the women just go along with it. Whereas in North America and northern and southern tribes here, majority of the tribes, the women are in charge.
Yeah.
Now there could be some that have different influences. The majority of them, the women are the ones that are the final say. They're the head of the household.
Yes.
They are the ones that make sure that, you know, things are taken care of, the household's taken care of.
Yes.
Back in the day when AIM first started, the Women Council, which was the elder women, they were the ones that told them what to do.
Yeah.
And the men back then, they listened to them.
Yes.
So for me personally, I can tell the difference between someone who is legit forget about tribal cards and
Yeah.
blood quantum, all that stuff. I can see how someone is legit by how they carry themselves.
Yeah.
You know, if a woman comes to me and she's claiming that she's Native and she's pushy and bossy and narcissistic, trying to get attention for herself, I already know that person is not traditional. They don't walk that way. Our way is more humble and not to get attention to ourselves.
Yes.
If a man is claiming to be, you know, a spiritual leader and all this other stuff, that's his first mistake, is when somebody claims that they're a spiritual leader. No one's supposed to claim that. But then when they're always trying to get attention to themselves and make sure that their picture's taken and their name is in the paper and they're the all-knowing, seeing Oz, you know, that's who you go to for anything Native.
Yeah.
I already know that's someone that is just trying to get attention for themselves.
Yeah.
And I can tell. And I don't sit there and call the person out or criticize them, you know, publicly or not even privately. I just watch them.
Yeah.
And that's the person I keep my eye on. So it's all about tradition, that is unspoken, that is inbred in us, in our spirits. Because I tell folks, if you stop and listen, your ancestors, your spirit is talking to you.
Yeah.
It's that little gut feeling you get when you know you should or shouldn't do something.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're not taught to listen to that.
No.
You know, for me, what really bothers me a lot, like especially with all the kids that are being found, all the bodies under the residential schools.
Yes, I was going
in
to bring
Canada.
that up.
Yeah, that's something that every day now they're finding more and more kids. And I keep telling folks, we haven't even started looking here in the United States. So let's talk about California.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Sherman Indian High School was boarding
right over there.
Still, but it was in Riverside.
Riverside.
We have the different missions where, you know, you had people that were enslaved. That's why I tell folks, you know, you want to talk about slavery? Let's talk about the first people in this country that were enslaved from the beginning.
Well, I'm a Hashiman. You trust me, I know.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what, you know, that's one of the things that, for me as being Oglala and Chiricahua, these are not my lands. Now, yes, my family has always been here for that. Well, not always, but at least since the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's people have always been here.
Yeah.
And so it would be like me going into your house and saying, hey, I'm going to have a party in your house.
Yeah.
Like, just going to do it. Yeah. So I don't do anything out here without the approval of any of the local tribal elders.
Yeah.
Even with our chapter, we're not a chapter yet, we're a support group. So the way AIM works is we have a grand governing council.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see different kinds of AIMs popping up all over the place. But the legit ones that are the traditional, from the original AIM, are grand governing council sanctioned support groups for 6 months. And then we become a sanctioned chapter.
Okay.
So right now, our support group is American Indian Movement for Orange County. We are a support group until next month, and then we become a chapter.
Oh, nice.
And so there is bylaws that we have to follow, rules, and we have a board of directors. And my board, I'm very proud of them. They're a great group of people. We have my assistant director, who is Jessica Coghill. She's Chiricahua. We have our secretary is Iveen Rubadu, and she's Ottawa, Missouri. We have Adam Loya, who's a Tongva member, the Tongva Gabrielino. He's also a council member for one of the Tongva bands. We have Irene Gonzalez, who is a Rancheria tribal member. I can't remember. I have a hard time saying her Rancheria tribe, but she's from Northern California.
Okay.
And these folks are strong people, and I believe in them. And so we haven't done anything really big because we have some stuff that needs to be taken care of with the local Tongva Hashiman elders of the area that needs to be taken care of before we go any further.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the part of me that's tradition. I really believes that needs to happen before we can go forward.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. You know, to me, it's not my time; it's Creator's time.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a Hashiman. You have my blessing. You got mine. If I had any kind of say, but if I did, you definitely have my power. You have my vote. You guys do what you got to do. You know.
Well, I appreciate that. It's, the thing is, there's a lot of Native people here in Santa Ana, and
Yeah.
one of the Facebook groups is Neighbors of Santa Ana, and I try to reach out as much as I can without making any drama,
Yeah.
because there's certain things that happen that people don't agree with. So Jonathan Ryan Hernandez is the council member that appointed me as personnel commissioner.
Yeah.
And I'm the first Native American ever to be as a commissioner.
Yes,
in
I
City of Santa Ana.
have to tell you that I saw the video and you're in your whole regalia, everything. I have to tell you, I was so proud to see that. That's amazing. After all these years, you're the first one.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's not about me. It's about all the natives before me and my kids and my grandkids and anybody else who lives in the city. We are the silent population of Santa Ana.
Yeah.
We are the group that nobody really sees because people just assume that we're Mexican or
Exactly.
we're Filipino or we're Asian or Samoan, whatever.
Exactly.
And so every now and then when I hear someone on public comments on the city council, tonight's the city council, but I'm here with you.
Ooh, we got we got first
yeah,
dibs.
You got priority. But whenever I hear a young person identify themselves as, they'll say the Tonga Capulino or a Hashman or Peach, whatever they say that they are of this area, I'm very proud of them, and I wish I could just reach out to them, because we are really trying to get members in our support group and then chapter that are Native, whether they're younger or older, because we want them to see that they have a voice.
Yes.
And by me being a commissioner, I see that as a huge responsibility to set an example for integrity and what we can do and how we can initiate change.
Yeah.
I have no desire to run for public office, although some people have their own ideas. I don't because, and for me, the reason why is because I do have the domestic violence history.
Yeah.
And the person that almost killed me 2.5 years ago actually has a warrant for his arrest right now still.
Yeah.
And he doesn't leave me alone. And I don't want to put anybody at risk.
Yeah.
And so I take that into consideration, because you know how politics are. You run for office, people start bringing out all the old skeletons out of the closet and everything. And I don't have anything to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be put on display.
Yes. Like a sideshow. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. But at the same time, I do realize that as a commissioner in the city, I do hold a responsibility. So one of the things I did share with Jonathan is that Councilman Hernandez is that I do want to get involved in the Justice Center that's in the police department right now for domestic violence survivors.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to get more involved there because I want to be able to bring my perspective as a survivor and what a survivor looks like.
Yeah.
Just because you're a survivor doesn't mean that you can't become a victim again. So you always have to stay watchful.
Yeah.
And be careful, because there's old habits we can get back into.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's so much that I want to do that I have to be selective where I put my energy at.
Yeah. You can't put your energy to everything at one point. At one time. You have to kind of tackle them one at a time and make sure that it's foolproof.
Well, what do they say is if you try to fill up a plate with too many dishes on it, too many types of food, eventually things fall off the plate.
Exactly.
So I don't want to be that person, but I do want to be able to make a difference in some way. For example, one of the things that the council just announced 2 weeks ago is that we're gonna have an Indigenous Peoples Day. Columbus Day is going to be taken away. It's going to be gone.
Good.
The lost Italian guy, and Councilman Hernandez actually had the lost Italian guy's plaque taken off the library. And people were up in arms and they were so upset.
I know, right?
And then there's always somebody that's a pot stirrer, that's got to pose that question. And to me, it's just the guy was not no discoverer, and he raped and killed lots of little girls.
He was a pedophile. He was a full-on pedophile.
He was.
Yeah.
Pedophile, rapist, kidnapper, you name it. So why is it that I don't understand why people get so caught up with raising up people that did bad things?
Exactly. and I mean, what bothers me too is, and here we go too. I mean, to this day, we are called Indians. And and the reason why we're called that is because this idiot thought he was in India.
Mm-hmm.
No one bothered to fix it. Nobody bothered to fix it.
No, and sadly, that is some of the what I have. Like I said, I have gotten conversations with young people who say, well, you're called the American Indian Movement, and that's just perpetuating the colonizers' language. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm not going to try and fix it. This is something that's 30 something, 40, 50 years old.
Yeah.
They've suggested turning it into the American Indigenous Movement. I'm like, yeah, no, because the term indigenous, there's indigenous people all over the world.
Yeah, there's people indigenous. There's people indigenous to Ireland, England, indigenous
that's
to
all it means.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it just means originally from. And when I spoke last year at the Juneteenth rally in downtown Santa Ana at Virgin Park, and I told people, indigenous just means originally from. A tree that's been here for the last 60, 70 years, it's indigenous.
It's indigenous, yeah.
So it's another one of those traps that the higher ups start using in order to clump everybody together.
Yeah.
So I am Oglala and Chiricahua. That's what I am. Those are my tribes. That's who I am. The other labels are labels that those what do you call it? The colonizers, the dominants. That's the names that they gave us.
Yeah.
And some names we're stuck with because of legalities, but when you get down to it, I am Oglala. I am Chiricahua.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with me. It's the same thing with me. Like, I mean, I personally don't go by Juaneño. That's a Juaneño Indian, and I don't like being called that because that is what my that's what the Spanish called us. That's what our rulers call us, is Juaneño. So I don't like using that. I don't like using that name, and I know that officially we have to use that name. It's Juaneño Band of Mission Indians, and then it's the Hashima Nation. So I really have like Luiseños and whatever. That's not the real name. You know what I mean? But yeah, they give these names that are not. We have our name that's our name to the federal government, and then we have our own name that we originally were before everybody came.
Yep.
And that's
the hard thing that folks don't understand. The closest I've come to understanding some of the way things are is like I had some Vietnamese friends that I worked with, and they had their traditional Vietnamese names or Korean names, and they took on American names, like Susan, Jackie, Janice. They took on those Americanized names so that they could fit in. And they explained it to me why, and I understood it. I said, yeah, it's the same way with us. And so it's all about being proud of who you are, because the biggest thing, like I've seen some folks on TikTok talk about what's American culture. It's hot dogs, hamburgers. That's not even it.
No.
The American culture is becoming a melting pot, blending in. Everybody assimilating and coming the same. That's how it was meant to be. To me, I don't go by that. We all each bring something to the table as equally as important as the other. I don't care what color your skin is.
Yeah.
I'd rather be by someone who's Caucasian, who knows that their bloodline is French and Irish, and they know their traditions and they're proud.
Yeah.
And then they're American.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. That's what you do. You don't sit there and deny your ancestors for the sake of what some bunch of guys that wear more makeup than some women do now decided to do a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not about assimilating anymore. It's like each of us are important. Each of us bring value. I have no problem with people being proud of who they are, whether they're black, brown, white, or Asian. I don't care. Be proud.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I was I went to Cerritos College, and when I was there, I was the president of the Native American Student Club, and we had MECHA. And I remember when all the clubs went out to organize and gather members, this group came out and they were calling themselves a White Pride group, the White Pride Club. Oh my God, people were so angry and upset. Well, I went over there and I talked to them, and I found out they weren't just, somebody else put that label on them. I forget what they called the club, but it wasn't White Pride. That's just what the label that everybody else
gave them, because
slapped on them. Exactly. And so what they were doing is they were promoting being proud of their European heritage, whether it be French, Spanish, Italian, whatever it was. And they were promoting that. And I didn't see anything wrong with it, because I'm like, what's the difference between MECHA, the Asian Student Club, the Black Student Union Club, and Native American Club? We're all pushing our cultures and ethnicities. Why can't they?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything wrong with it. And people were upset with me in the beginning, but once I started explaining it, they understood.
Yeah.
They understood that the fact that everybody has the right to be proud of their ancestral heritage, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what gets lost. That's why people get so angry. And so when you see white folks getting upset because they're becoming the minority, well, it's because they were never taught their heritage or who they really are.
Yeah.
And if you learn who you were and where you came from, you can be a better person today and tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it's about.
And one of the things that it's a problem with with that we have as natives, the problem that we have is that which in dealing with the current culture, the current generation, is that they wiped us away from the history books. They wiped away the sins. They wiped away the things they did, the way they treated us, the brutality, the slavery. They wiped everything from the book because, of course, this is their book, and they don't want to. When it's your book and you're doing the autobiography, you're definitely not going to give yourself the worst. Everybody to share the worst information about what you've done. So, a lot of people, I've shared some of these stories with a lot of people, especially with my tribes, and some people are like, did this really happen? I never heard of that. Well, of course you didn't you never heard of it. Was it something you were taught in school? No. Was it in the books? No. It doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
It happened. Trust me, it happened. I had a conversation with someone the other day. They did not know that the first governor of California offered money for native scalps, heads. Which
Did you know that's still in the books? Did
Yes.
you know that the bounty is still on the books?
They never took
that
off. I know they have never taken it off.
Yeah, still there. You
And
get $5. I think it's $25 for a child head and $50 for an adult.
yes, and had to do with eradicating and getting rid of us. And that's what it was about. So the reason why I bring that up is that's why my family fled California, Ahashiman, and went over to Texas and New Mexico. And that's what they had to do. And I know a lot of other people who are Hashiman, and that are part of my tribe, head out to Arizona. It's all the same generation that take off. Nobody has any clue of this. They think it's a made up story, like it's some kind of fantasy book. No, this is history that you guys don't know anything about. And I think that's the problem. We've been erased from the history books of this country. And so when we have no place to go on there and say, hey, look, this is what happened to us. We have if we don't have a voice inside a history book, where do we fit in? And that's exactly where we're at.
Yep. And you know who it's up to change the narrative? It's up to not just us, but our younger ones.
Yes.
To get an education, to start becoming teachers and professors, become council members, to become boards of supervisors, state representative, Congress. They need to start doing that because that's how you initiate change, and that's how you make change the stories that are being told in school. That's how you change the narrative. You become screenwriters, screenplay writers. You become all that so that you can change the story that's being told. Yeah. That's how the dominant culture did it. Well, the once dominant culture did it.
Yeah.
Is they had control of everything, and so they had their narrative. So now it's up to our descendants to change the narrative.
Yeah.
And older folks that are, that aren't, I'm sorry, they're, like my son says, they're not woke. They don't like that. And they want to stifle it. Yeah. And they get scared. And I understand the fear because my ancestors and my people go through the fear. So I get it. But times are changing. And I truly believe that in the next 50 years, it's going to flip. It's going to be different. But sadly, this country has made so much damage to the environment, to the earth, to the water, to the air, that I don't know what our grandchildren, our kids and grandchildren are going to be left with.
Exactly. What mess they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah. And I can't even wrap my head around it because then I start getting frustrated because I just want to do something. But we can each make a difference on our narrative and on how we treat other people and how we treat the area that we're in, by example. Yeah. But we have to our young people have to get involved in their school districts and in every facet of our whole infrastructure. They have to get involved and they make the change.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be different, because I know, like, my assistant director, she has a special needs kid, and she's in her 40s, like early 40s. She wants to get into the school district. She lives in Yorba Linda School District, and she wants to get in there to change the narrative when it comes to Native American Month. Heritage Month is in November, which I don't know why they gave us November, but whatever.
Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving month. Yeah, right.
Oh, I despise October and November with a passion, because people, thank God for COVID last year, because I didn't have to deal with fools dressing up for Halloween. It drives me crazy, because people think they want to have this image of Native American women as being all sexy with tight little dresses and showing off skin. And our tradition is not to be showing off skin. It's quite the opposite.
Opposite, exactly.
Yeah, and then our Native American men is being the warrior and all strong. And you know what? And yeah, that's part of it, but that's not like the way they make it out to seem, walking around with their chest. Most of the time, some of our guys have big old bellies.
Right.
Just because of the culture and the way it is right now. But it's having to deal with that. And then you go into November. I don't do Thanksgiving. Okay, I don't do it. I'm usually, an exception to when my mom passed away afterwards, doing it for my dad. I usually fast for Thanksgiving, and we'll do something on Friday or Saturday. Some natives will go to Alcatraz and go to the sunrise ceremony out there, and that is heavy. That is a really heavy pilgrimage to take. But so we all have our own ways, and it's not being that we're not thankful, or I'll speak for myself, that I'm not thankful for what I have. I am thankful every single day. I don't wait for a holiday once a year to be thankful.
Exactly. I believe that same way. Valentine's Day and all that stuff, whatever. It's like, love your spouse the whole year round. Right?
I'm single, so to me, I just see that. Even when I wasn't single, I see Valentine's as being a commercial time for just other people to make money.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't abide by that. I don't even like.
I'm not big on that. I'm not big on that at all. No. Same here.
No.
Yeah.
And I always tell my sons, if you come across a woman that makes a big deal out of Valentine's and expects you to spoil her and spend all kinds of money, ditch her for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you need to step to somebody else. My oldest son, his wife, oh my God, I love her to death. She's Apache Mexican. She's a beautiful person, so artistic and talented, and I couldn't have picked a better person for my son. She's the bomb. She's great. And I for my kids, I just want them to be happy. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they're a janitor and they're happy. As long as they're happy, that's it.
Yeah,
true. Yeah. I want them to be proud of who they are and where they come from. And so my oldest son, his name is Johnny. He is amazing. He's an amazing artist. He's so talented and articulate. He was my little road dog with all the AIM functions when he was growing up. So he can speak to it so eloquently that he blows me away. My youngest son, he is the same way. He's very articulate and talented and skilled in that. He's a 6'5", like big Indian guy.
Oh, really?
He's 6'5" or 6'3", something like that. All I know is he's huge, and he's like 300 pounds. He's a big guy.
Oh, wow.
And and my oldest son is like 5'10", 120 pounds, soaking wet.
Wow, buddy.
Like total opposites. But the thing is, they know, my two boys know who they are and where they come from. They really embrace our traditions and our culture wholeheartedly.
That's good.
And so I'm really proud of them. But what I tell folks is that if you're a Native parent and you don't know too much about your traditions and you don't have anybody close by to help you, that's what AIM is about.
Yeah. We're
about education and spirituality and bringing people together. It's not about bashing any one race against the other.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we were very militant.
And had to be. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it was during the Civil Rights Movement. We were equal to the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
And that's something that I am actually proud of, and I have it in me to be like that when needed. I just rather not.
I believe all of us should be like that when needed. Sometimes that's the only other way, is to be that way. I believe that. I know a lot of people might not agree, but when you've been pushed around and murdered and raped and things stolen from you and left with nothing, you might be militant too.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I think with the residential schools right now, I have a feeling, especially with the COVID restrictions being lifted, I have a very strong feeling in the next few months, our support group and chapter will be very busy with those issues around this area, not just Orange County, but Southern California. We don't go anywhere without being invited. And that's just something that I'm very big about, because in the past, I've seen other groups, without, naming particular ones, forcing themselves into situations that they weren't called to be at. So one thing that in our chapter, our support group right now, our support group has our bylaws, and it states that we will not go anywhere we're not invited to go. We're not asked to go, and we will go when we are asked to. So that's something that's very important, because being that I'm the director, I set the tone for how our support group and later chapter will be. And I want it to be one of peace and harmony and spiritual awareness and education. Now, that does not mean that if we've got to get bold and braid up, like my cousin used to say, braid up, don your braids and get ready to go out and do battle. If we have to, we can do it. But we'd rather find other ways to deal with stuff. And there is a good way to do it, but sometimes you have to be called to come out and stand up. And that's something I think we're going to do.
And let me ask you this. Someone like myself, I'm gonna put myself out there. Someone like myself, you know my history. You know that I've always known I was Native. I always knew where part of myself was from. I've always known that. I'm just somebody who, I guess you can say, I've made a point of it to look into and to embrace it. And I'm still learning. I'm trying to get whatever I can back for my ancestors and also for my children. I want to keep us going. I want to show that genocide didn't work. It did, that we were above it. What do you say to people like me who are, I guess, we're not raised in Native culture? We know we are. What do you say for people like us who just are just trying to find ourselves, our Native selves, and get in touch with our ancestors? What do you say to individuals like me?
Well,
words of wisdom.
That's the reason why I'm so excited about our support group and later chapter for AIM. We had an AIM chapter here before. It was Orange County AIM, and it was disbanded for crazy reasons back in 2017. And the whole reason for it is that we want folks, we're not the answer to all tribes' issues or problems, but we seek to be the liaison, the go-between. And so what I'm looking for is Native people in the community to want to come and be a part of our group, to be able to have a center spot to touch, to be a part of, to learn traditions and cultures, because we have connections with Native people of the Hashiman, of the Tongva, of the tribes over the area, so that if you don't know them personally, you can meet them. Like, we're not going to just sit here and say, oh, okay, this is how you do your ceremony, because I don't know what your ceremonies are, but I'm going to bring people in that do, and give that connection to you for the people that you need to be connected to. And then you can be a part of the movement. And it's like one of my friends from another group, they say this is not just a moment, it's a movement. Well, American Indian movement's been around since 1968.
Yeah.
And so we have always been a movement, and it's about connection. So I tell folks that if you don't know your traditions of your particular nation, come to us and we'll give you that connection, and we'll teach you what we can, what we do know. And if we don't know personally, we'll connect you with people. It's a community. It's not just a civil rights group. It's a community to be a part of. Besides being involved in Indigenous people, we're going to be putting on a powwow next year, hopefully at Santa Ana Community College. And
I can't wait.
Is going to be, oh my God, we're so excited. Fern Matthias and my auntie Fern, she was the Los Angeles American Indian Movement director back in the 80s and 90s. And she walked on in 2002. And so it's going to be 20 years next year since she walked on. And we're going to have the American Indian Movement Orange County Memorial Powwow for her.
Wow.
And this is a big deal. I mean, I already talked to her daughter, Kim, who's family to me, and she already gave her blessing. So this is something that I want the whole community, the whole Native community around here to be involved in. I want them to have a part of it, so that when they come to it, they're going to feel they're welcome, that they're not an outsider, because we're going to have a booth, we're going to have our canopy set up. It's going to be home based for everybody. So we're building up to something beautiful. We want there to be 50, 60, 100 members in this chapter, in this support group, because it's going to give folks a connection. And you can do with whatever you want. So if you want to learn how to be, for lack of a better word, how to be native, it's not, I don't know how to describe it. There's not a certain recipe. It's just about community and family and connection. And see, that's what happens to a lot of people, that they had to hide who they really were. So it's not within their family. So it's okay as a parent to bring your kids and say, you know what, I don't really know everything. Can you teach me what you can? We'll teach what we know and what's appropriate to teach. And then if we don't know the ways, we'll bring the people in.
Yeah, I had this moment. I have to bring this up because of what we're talking about. I have a lot of other, my kids are part of an intertribal youth group that they're in. And, me, I just kind of was like, feeling like, oh my God, like, I don't know anything, because I come from, like what you were discussing, that you had to be a native in hiding. I had my great grandmother. She had to marry a Mexican to hide. She had to take that on, and she had to put stuff down on paper, this, and just to survive. And I heard later on from her own son, that my uncle, that it made her very sad that she had to hide that, because her life was in danger. Even in the 40s, her life was in danger. So that was a little bit of a wake-up call for me when he told me that. I felt like, I know this information. I love my family. I love my heritage. I got to do something for that. What can I do? Let me look into my people. Let me look into this. Let me bring myself back. Let's bring our line back to our people. And that's what I've been trying to do. But I had a moment. It was strange. My kids are at their intertribal meeting, and I just felt very awkward, and everybody knows all the customs. I know some things, I just don't know. I would say I probably know like 1/100th, what I mean, of things, because that's what happened. I was stripped of my language, of my everything. That's what they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. Yes. They took the culture away from my line, and so. One of the elders was there, and they were going to be drumming, okay, and I wasn't going to go. I felt very uncomfortable, and he walked up to me. He goes, "I want you to drum with us." And he asked me. He goes, "So, what tribe is your family from? Where is you from?" And I told him, and I told him I was Otham, and he goes, "Really?" He goes, "Well, that's what we are." And I was like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You need to come sit down." And he had me sit down. He goes, I couldn't refuse him. I had to. This was an elder here. So I sat down. Yeah. And he started showing me, like, this is what you're going to do. The drum is, the heartbeat and how we do this, and good vibes and clear yourself and take all the bad out and everything. And he said, and he goes, "And I'm going to get your daughters to come, and your daughters are going to come, and they're going to stand behind you, and they're going to be behind you, and we're going to do this for you." And so he was making it kind of a big deal for me, and I'm thinking, okay, I kind of feel awkward. And so I did, and we were drumming together. I cannot even tell you what went over me. I had my daughters holding each one of my shoulders. And we were doing this, and it was like an epiphany. Like, this is it. I couldn't even explain it. It was as if I couldn't even explain it at that moment. And what I felt, I felt like I'm finally here. Like, you did it. You're here right now. You're doing something that we did. My ancestors were calling to me. And it was
that's exactly what it was.
And it was absolutely a feeling I can't even describe. I can't even describe it. And at that moment, it was almost like, and I'm not going to turn this to a different thing, like, to kind of compare it. You know what? Jesus got baptized. I got baptized that day. That was it. That was your spiritual awakening. That was your spirit of your ancestors and of you coming through to you, saying, this is where you belong. Yeah. And that's something that whoever's listening to this right now, they need to step back. I don't care what ethnicity, what background they come from. Close your eyes and imagine that everything you hold true, whether it be religious or part of your family, whatever it is,
strip it all away, and it's taken from you, and you cannot practice that anymore.
No.
You have to assimilate to what your neighbor does, and that's it.
Yeah.
That is what it's like for us. It's being stripped away and told, be ashamed of it, be embarrassed of it, be something else, pretend you're this, pretend. My grandfather couldn't even get a job without pretending he was Mexican. That's the only way he could get a job. And if you were to see my grandfather, there was no way he could pass for that, but he managed it. And to have that kind of upbringing, it destroys your self-esteem
Yes, it
and your
does.
inner spirit.
It
It just mutes it down. And that it's time to stop that. So I don't care whatever time I have left here on this land, and the Creator sees me to be, like some kids say that I'm going to be around until I'm 100 years old. I will be happy. I know, what did my son tells me, he goes, evil doesn't die. I'm like, okay, I wish I could learn to be that way. But what I'm saying is, all I do is make one person or 5 people feel proud of who they are.
Yeah.
And get in touch with their traditions and their spirit again, so that they can give that gift to their kids and their grandkids. You know, the reality is one day you're going to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
Do you want your grandkids to have the same experiences you have from your grandmother?
No, not at
Or
all.
do you want to
Not
give
at
them
all.
that gift of embracing their traditions and their past?
Yes.
Even if they're mixed blood or whatever, however it works out, they should be able to embrace all facets of their spirit and their ancestors.
Well, you know what?
rather
I'm
than just
very
one.
lucky. I was very lucky because you want to hear you know, for lack of a better word, the big middle finger to my ex-wife from my oldest daughter. You know, we talked about that, how she was very embarrassed to be Native. My daughter marries a great. I mean, his name is Elliot. His name's Tito, and he's Yaqui. He's Yaqui. She married a Native.
Oh, nice.
So she married a Native.
Nice, very nice.
And I was thinking to myself, you know what? All right, there you go. There you go. You know what I mean? There you go.
Karma has a way of getting in there somehow.
Yeah.
Some way.
So it's like, you know what? Hey, I couldn't be more happy. I mean, my mom always laugh about it. She's like, oh, she must love that. And I'm like, tell me about it.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I even have, like, sometimes there's even some parents that come to me that they're non-native, and they're parents of Native kids. So they have kids that are half Native.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the father or the mother is no longer involved in the life of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, how do I, as a Native parent, get my kids involved in their culture?
Yeah.
And I tell them, if you're a non-Native parent of Native kids, you have the same rights as a Native parent.
Yeah.
Because you have those kids.
Yeah.
So for like AIM, to be a member of AIM, you have to be a member of a federally or state recognized tribe and or community recognized.
Okay.
And the Grand Governing Council is changing the bylaws to include as members, as full members, those who don't have enough blood quantum or cannot trace their whole family. So meaning they're adopted and they just know a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have that ability now to have those folks be members as well. And what does it bring to be membership is bringing that community in, is having that connection with a Native community, even if it's intertribal, there's different tribes, which I think is a good segue into getting that connection, because eventually we all find each other.
Yeah.
That is something that's really missing. And so for someone like you and your kids and other parents that could be listening, that they know they have some Native blood, I don't care if you see your great-great-grandma, you know, as long as you know enough that we can help you find your traditions.
Yeah.
Are we the see-all, do-all of genealogy? No. And I'm not a big fan of DNA tests or anything like that.
Yeah, I know. You told me that. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. You'll find most full bloods or half blood, 3/4 bloods, they don't want to give their DNA to that. Because a lot of the base of the DNA is from South America, Peruvian, Brazilian, Europe. A lot of the blood base is buried. It's not, you won't see a lot of full bloods
No.
giving their DNA.
I did mine. I was really, that was actually surprising. Mine, I came up 51% Native.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I came up. Yeah.
What do I tell people? Just because you come back, that you know who you are because you know your people.
Yeah.
But for the person that doesn't know anything, that knows squat, and they go get their DNA, and I've seen it on TikTok and
Facebook and all
that, where people say, "Oh, I just got my DNA. I'm 65% Native American. Where's my money?" Like, dude, if there was money, I wouldn't be working.
Right?
Okay?
Exactly. Where's my money? Right? I've known an Indian my whole life.
Yeah, and let
Yeah.
me tell you something about the casino tribes. I have some really close friends that are part of them, but a lot of them are disenrolling their members
Yes, they are.
over silly things, and
Yes, they
it's
are.
all about the money. And I feel bad because back in the day when Prop 5 first came out, this is a long time ago, this is like 80s, when they came up with the casinos, I was part of that group that helped the ballot thing get on the ballot, proposition get on the ballot for the casinos. What was supposed to happen with the tribes did not happen. And there is corruption everywhere, not just in the U.S. government, in
tribal government, any government,
Yep, anything. There's once, especially when you start putting money in the mix, it gets worse. And so I've seen some horrible things done. Now, I don't get involved in the politics, but when people ask my opinion, I think it's done more harm than good. But when folks say, I'd be at work and people are saying, oh, I'm going to go to the casino this weekend, I tell them, thank you for your donation.
Right.
So there's a flip side to everything. But when it comes to like disenrollment and all that stuff, I get a lot of folks saying, hey, I could use your help on here. I know you're the director of AIM for OC. Can you come out and help? And I have to tell them no, because that's
tribal business.
politics.
That's tribal politics.
Yep.
Yeah, you're supposed to help everybody out on the out and like
Yep. And yes, we are about helping reservation people, right? Because that's how AIM started. There was problems on the reservations. Pine Ridge was one of them that they went out to help because they had the seizure wounded knee when there was a little deep corruption, and that got pretty violent. And that's where we learned the lessons of not getting involved in tribal government.
I know, darn it. I was about to ask you, please help us get federal recognition. We only got state. Now I can't ask you now. Damn it.
Yeah, no, I can't even help you with the state.
Dang it.
And that's
the state. We are with the state. We just aren't with federally. We're just state recognized.
Yeah. Well, and then there's other tribes that are having problems here in California that are having problems where, so they've got recognition for a certain amount of people, but whoever's in charge of that particular tribe doesn't want another family that he doesn't like. So the way I explain it to people is, imagine your whole family, okay? And you know how people intermarry to different families, and you got your base family that married into somebody else's family. So you decide that family that got married into another family isn't going to be part of your family anymore. Yeah. So you're going to kick them out. Yeah. Well, that's basically what's going on. So to me, it's like, I don't get involved in politics, religion, and family problems. And that's all the same thing.
I got my own.
Yeah, I'm just like, no. And my own family, my own actual own blood belly button family, they're all confused. The ones that don't want to be a part of it unless there's money to be had. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just my brother and I, and we're the ones that carry on the traditions and the ways as much as we can. But what's really good is that, so my family, the LeGaspes, they have the original family. They have the cousins and stuff that have different parents, different moms and dads. Mm-hmm. But my cousins who are in their 30s, they've reconnected with me. One of my cousins, she actually has her own farm in Utah, northern Utah, and she does a lot of like lotions and balms for the hand and pain. She does a lot of what do they call herbal remedies. Mm-hmm. And so she's gone back to the traditional medicine, plant medicine. Yeah. And so what I'm seeing of my younger cousins, they call me auntie cousin because I'm the only one teaching them traditions and our ways and our true stories. So they're listening. So that's what I'm saying is like the ones that are younger, the 20s and 30s, they're the ones who are changing the narrative for the future with their kids and with themselves. So that's just going to lead on. So it's getting rid of that shame and that hidden secret that we have.
Yes. It's a plague, and it's a plague with us. It's a plague. Is what it is.
But it's getting better for people like you that you're native and you have this kind of radio show. This is a great platform to get this information out and let people know, hey, you're not alone. Okay, I'm over here in Santa Ana, so this is where I live. This is where I'm planning to live. I'm not going anywhere. I want more people to get involved with our support group and chapter because we are nothing without the people, and we only seek to serve. And when we have Indigenous Peoples Day, I want everybody to own that and be a part of it because we're going to be the ones organizing it with the city, us. Yeah, that's a big deal. And so when they see a report coming out from the Personnel Commission, they're going to know that the Native sisters on that commission, they're represented. So when I make a decision, it's not just for myself; it's for everybody I represent that
Yeah.
I'm thinking about.
Well, let me ask you this, so that people are listening. So, what can people do? Like, I know in my end, I mean, before I move on, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but an example of the problem that I have is an issue with my children is my children, and I don't mind saying this out loud because I've talked about it before and it's frustrating. I had someone else who was also in the Garden Grove School District. Okay, so me and my group, we were able to get a grant for Native American children in Garden Grove School District. But then I started seeing this trend, and I ran into it along with another parent, and I kept changing. I realized that here I was, because I have a child that has an IEP and whatnot, and I'm seeing stuff, and I keep wondering how it keeps jumping back to Mexican American, Latino. And I keep telling them, wait a minute. Why is this getting changed? I keep changing this. And then I go into, the parent portal for Aries, and it would go back to Mexican American, Chicano, and everything. And I'm going, I keep putting Native American. I don't understand. So I made a big deal about it. Come to find out, they sometimes, people that work in offices sometimes say just a little too much. I know. It's not a big deal. We do that because we can get more funding if we have you down as you don't mind if we have you down as
Yes.
Mexican American. And I said, I absolutely do not want that. I need funding and stuff for our people. I already know I'm Mexican. I know I'm that. But my ethnicity, I say that I'm Native American. That's what I say I am. That's what I feel I am.
Identify.
And I said, that's who I identify with. You have no right to take that away for numbers. And I'm wondering how many other families did this happen to? So one of my guests that was on, she said the same thing. She goes, you witnessed that too, and you saw that happen. And I go, yeah. And she goes, how the hell are we going to count if they're taking us away and moving us to Mexican?
Exactly. So what happens is, one of the things I tell parents is that because we're pushed aside so much, they don't want to give us any recognition. So
Yeah.
as parents, we have to be proactive in our kids' education. So we have to constantly be checking on the records.
Yeah.
We have to constantly be reviewing them and audit them. And you see when they go and they change the ethnicity for the funding.
Yeah, exactly.
They only want us as Native when it's going to benefit them.
Exactly.
And so that's what's so frustrating is they go by, that's like I told you, like with my kids, their last name was Salazar.
Yeah.
So they were constantly being put to being Mexican. And it pissed me off to no end. And so when they would tell me in the school office, well, their father's Mexican, I don't give a rat's butt what their father is.
Right?
I'm the one raising them. I gave them birth. They're Native American.
Yeah.
And I would have to get like totally res on them. And so for people that are listening, we don't say ghetto, we say res.
We say res,
so
yes.
I had to get res on them. Yeah. And so I have to get like that with them. And oh man, we don't need you to be losing your temper. Then stop changing my kid's ethnicity.
Exactly.
If she was white, were you going to be changing her ethnicity to brown? I don't think so. But because there's money in it, because you want to slap something on because of their last name, you're going to go ahead and do it.
You know what I said to the person? They didn't get it, but they got really quiet. And I said, look, do you know how many generations of my family had to put white on paperwork? Do you not realize?
Yeah.
Do you not realize how many times this is finally they're putting down a Native? And I said, just so you know, I did my census, and my census I put down I was Native American in my family. Mm-hmm. So please do not change it. Enough people in my family had to hide under Mexican and had to hide under white. Please do not do this anymore. It's not cool. It's not cool at all, and I don't appreciate it. And I was very verbal, and you could tell she's like, I'm so sorry. And I said, could you do me a favor? And she goes, what? I said, I want you to put a note in there. And where is there somewhere in your computer system in regards to the files for my kids and that you have special notes in that you guys all access? And she says, oh, we put it here. And I go, guess what you're going to put there? Specifically in all caps, do not change the ethnicity of my children.
Yeah, well, to give you how technical I have to get for my kids. Mm-hmm. My uncle, he passed away in 2012. He was a White Mountain Apache, and he was a lawyer. He was one of the only tribal lawyers around in Whittier back then when I used to live out there. And what I did is I had him draw up a document that said my kids were Native American. That was it.
Yeah.
They were not, and so I had to give legal documentation to the school district so they could identify my kids as Native American and not change it. So that is something that I tell parents that if you want to be your child, as parents, first of all, you're your child's first teacher, period. You're also your child's first advocate. And so when it comes to something like that, you could tell them all you want, but I'll guarantee you it'll change at some point in time with the meeting. So if you want to make sure that it doesn't change, you get a document notarized. You write out a legal document stating what your kid's ethnicity and identification for their ethnicity is supposed to be, and you get it notarized. So it's a legal document, and you serve the school with that. And it has to go in, and that way they can't change it anymore.
Nice. I love that. I mean, you know what? Thank you for giving me that. See, I'm learning here on the radio show right here that I never thought about that. Yeah, there you go. I'm always learning.
That's how you do it, because the school is not going to ignore a legal document, because now you've served them, and now they know that if they try and change that, well, you can turn around and, I don't know, sue them.
Yeah.
Try throwing that word out a couple of times. Do you want to be sued over changing my child's ethnicity?
Yeah, they don't like to hear that word sue or legal action or
no. And parents have so many rights. Back when I was with Los Angeles AIM, I used to go to the schools and advocate for Native kids all the time, especially with those with special needs. And the school hated when they saw me coming in, because they already knew. It was like, who brought the bulldog in?
Yeah.
Like, why did you guys have to call her? So the parents got to the point where they started threatening to call me. Well, I'm the same way. So I'm very involved with my union for my job, and I'm a union steward. So one of the things that my coworkers do is they'll write an email to their boss or whatever, and they CC me. Now, I might not even know the details of what's going on. They just kind of let me know, but they CC me, and they get what they need.
Yeah.
Because they already know, certain people already know that I don't want to have to go in there and start putting contracts and laws in front of them and say, look, you're breaking this part of the contract and you're doing this and that's not right. I'm not going to sit there and make up something. I'm going to take it off of fact and book. So that's why I tell folks, stick to policy, stick to the law, and when you quote the law, make sure you're specific. If you got to copy and paste it in your email, then you do that.
Yeah.
So you show them you know what you're talking about. There's one thing that a lot of good educators say that they love, but some of the old school ones will say they can't stand a well-educated, knowledgeable parent.
Yeah.
Because now they know how to ask for their rights.
Yeah.
So if anything really ever got me fired up as an advocate was advocating for my kids, because they were Native, because they had special needs, because they came from a broken home, because they saw domestic violence in their home. I was constantly having to fight for them.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how that fire got lit in me and just kept going. Yeah. And I don't know how to just sit back and watch something that's wrong. I don't like corruption, and I'll speak up against it. And even though some people will say, oh, you shouldn't do that because you're going to get in trouble. Okay, well, it's not the first time. It probably won't be the last, so it's all good.
Well, let me ask you this for everybody who's listening. So how do people, especially in Orange County in regards to this, how do people get involved with AIM? What is the process? Where do you go to? How do you get involved in
First off, you call me, and everybody, people could just Google me and they could find me. So I'm just like, that's why I'm so open, because I tell folks, first off, with AIM in Orange County, you call me. So I can give you my phone number, I can give my email out, and folks can contact me. And we're going to be having a huge membership drive next month in July.
Okay.
And start building our membership. And since the restrictions have been taken away, right now we've been meeting on Zoom, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. But we're going to start having in-person meetings. So they can contact me and I'll give my phone number. It's 714-326-5507. Or they can contact us at aimoc@gmail.
Okay.
And I think I'm thinking to myself, wait, is that the email address?
Well, don't worry. I'm gonna share this information anyways too. I'm gonna make sure I share it for those who are interested. I'm gonna share this on our site and whatnot. And so don't worry.
Yeah, it's aimoc@gmail.
At Gmail. Okay.
Yeah, so it's aimoc@gmail, and that's our email. And to me, it's like I'll have folks call me and ask me, hey Nellie, can you help me with this? I don't mind helping folks. It's just the one thing I always caution people to do and to remember is if you come across anybody, Native or otherwise, that is selfish with you, that says, oh, only come to me for the answers. I'm the only Native person. If I were to tell anybody that, I'd tell them, call me on my BS right there and then. No one should ever stop you from having multiple connections
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Native people.
Yeah.
That's wrong. So I'm only one person, but I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And so there's no rule against being involved in different groups. But so to be a part of AIM, like I said, you contact me. There is a 6-month probation. You have to be sponsored by a board member for those first 6 months. And pretty much it's just to make sure that nobody's going to come in here and think it's a pickup joint.
Darn
You know,
it. Darn it.
Yeah, right? You want to come meet a Native woman, come to AIM. Yeah,
Darn
no,
it.
we're not about that.
I thought it was a tobacco smoking club. Come on.
Right, we're not a drinking party. We're not. Although I do love Denny's. Okay, like this is something that people, my friends, know about me. I love Denny's.
I love
okay?
Denny's too.
Like, yeah, we would go to powwows and be like, "Where are we going after powwow?" Denny's. You know, my friends will say, "Hey, Nellie, where do you want to go?" Denny's. It's like that's me. I like Denny's. So we used to have meetings at Denny's up the street, right here on Bristol and 17th.
Oh, right
we used
here.
to have our meetings there. Yeah, and the manager there loved us because we were spending money. We were going to eat.
Yeah,
and we were
right.
there for like hours, and we weren't just chit chatting and drinking coffee. We were planning actions and
Big
things.
things.
that we were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
Yeah, and so it was easier than coming to my place, and 'cause my place can't hold a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like back in the day when we had AMLA, it was a tradition where people were always coming over my house, or we were going over my Aunt Fern's house. We were always gathering, and we would just get together and have a little meeting, and then we'd plan what we were going to do, and then we gathered for food and drums and singing, and those are some of the most beautiful times that I had. And there was people from all kinds of different tribes and all different colors.
Yeah.
And that's what it was about. It's about community. It's about belonging, having that connection. So that's what we're about. We're about giving folks that connection and being a part of something beyond just themselves.
Yeah.
To learn, to be able to share. And, sometimes somebody might call me to go to a school district for an IEP. I've done that.
Yeah.
To come out and their child with a medical issue with having a doctor treat them the right way. We've helped with that stuff. We've helped with immigration reform. We've helped with people that get picked up from ICE or something. We'll help them with that.
Yeah.
We help wherever we're needed, and we show up, and we're a part of the solution, not the problem. That's the big. That's what I tell people. You want to be part of the solution? Come see us.
I love that. Definitely, I'm going to be sharing the information as well. I know, like I said, I know there's a lot of natives here in Orange County that don't have a voice and don't know where to go and what to do. So I'm definitely gonna be, putting the word out through our sites and our social media, platforms and whatnot. So I really appreciate you on the radio today. And I have to tell you something. I got to have you on again, like very, very soon, because to me, I don't even think we hit all of anything of what the information that you have and what I want you to share, because it's just so much in regard your life, a life of what you do, and what you stand for, your activism, whatever. I mean, to me, like I said, I think it would be a movie. Seriously. I think there's a lot of things you could talk about to help uplift people who in domestic violence, to natives, women, everything. I mean, there's just so much that you're a part of that to me, it's got to be, I think it's got to be a bunch of episodes of you, seriously, it is. And I really appreciate having you on here. I'm really glad that I made a decision to dedicate time monthly to fellow natives, and natives can tune in and they can listen to other natives on the radio, especially something like this. So I feel like I have an obligation. I have an obligation to have somebody like you on here and to spread information and have a place where natives can at least come and listen to other natives talk and get resources and get ideas and get help and know where to go. I think that's very important. And thank you for being the conduit for that. I really appreciate that.
Well, it's an honor and a responsibility, and I really like to see all the natives in this area because I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know they're there. I know they're like kind of blended in with everybody else, but I really.
Oh no, they're there. They're just getting change on the school district. That's what it is.
Right. So, and I because to me, when I think of events like Indigenous Peoples Day, October is, besides being October is going to become Native American Indigenous Peoples Day. Besides that, October is also domestic violence awareness.
Yes.
And that's something that I am very passionate about, and I want to really, really like work on it more. And then I also talk to men, because back in the day I used to go talk to them at the prisons about men about being proud of being men and what it is to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
And not just in the native sense, but primarily for native purposes. And
Yeah.
I had men tell me, well, what do you know about being a native man? Hello, I raised 3 of them.
Right, there you go, right?
I had to be mother and father to them. So it's a responsibility. We're selfish if we just keep these gifts to ourselves that the Creator gave us. And even with your skill and your talent of doing what you do with the radio show, that's a responsibility. Anybody that has a talent and a skill has a responsibility to use that platform for good.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, more good comes to you. So anything that I can help out with groups of people, anything that I can help you with the show, you just tell me what you wanted me to talk about. I've been scatterbrained for this whole thing, but
not at all.
I think that's because I've been in lockdown too much.
I know, right? We all been, yeah. But see,
I have a lot to give, and I don't mind giving it. And I'm not the know-it-all of everything. I have other people that I can connect to that can help me.
Yeah.
We're a big community, and we should be coming together instead of being so separated.
Yes.
And that's what I'm about, is bringing us all together.
And me personally, I gotta tell you, people listening, hey, look at me. I'm interested in joining AIM. I just gotta find someone who can, sponsor me, like a board member or something. I gotta find somebody.
You.
There you go. See,
I would sponsor you.
There you go.
So that's what it is, because we're starting out. So the board members, I mean, I'm probably gonna be sponsoring a bunch of people. That just means I'm responsible for you, and you mess up, you're gonna deal with me. So,
oh, great! I don't want to deal with an Apache. I'm married to one. I'm already married to one. I'm already scared now. Thanks.
But that's really it's about us making an investment in each other and being able to be brothers and sisters to each other and helping each other out, not pushing each other down. Yeah. I'm not, like I said, I'm not about glory. I'm not about, I'm not narcissistic like that, where I need to have all the attention and the credit. I don't like that.
Yeah.
When I was little, my nickname was "They're Afraid of Her."
Oh, really?
And I could never understand that until I keep telling my assistant director, I'm like, why are people afraid of me? Like, some people really are afraid of me, and I'm just a big old softie.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm passionate about what I believe in, and I really believe that Native people, we need to come together.
Yeah.
We need to stop having that crab in the bucket syndrome and pulling each other down.
Yeah.
We all have value. We're all important.
Yeah.
We all have gifts. So stop fighting with each other and just come together. And let each other be separate in our own things, but come together when we need to. That's what's important.
Yes. Thank you so much. Again, I love your words of wisdom. I can hear you all day long. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll come on again soon if for an invite. I hope I know everybody agrees, so I hope you come on again soon.
Well, I hope people do, and anytime, I'm more than willing to be a part of it at any time.
Great. Nellie, thank you so much for everything. And, like I said, I'll be sharing everything online with everybody, how to get a hold of her, your native, let's get this going. Let's get you involved and, let's give you a voice. So, thank you so much for being on Funk Fellas Weekly. I really appreciate that.
Wompila, that's thank you in Oglala, and Tosca, that's our greeting for later.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. And so I hope you're ready. We have a little bit of music going on for a little bit. Are you okay with that? Yeah? You ready to boogie a little bit?
Sounds good.
There you go. I know. In this heat, I know you're like, yeah, in this heat, good luck.
Right? All right, dude. Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Much love to you. Thank you. You make me very proud to be Native. I'm glad there's individuals like you who are doing what they're doing. Thank you.
Oh, good. Very good. Thank you.
All right, let's do this. Let's do this. FunkFellasRadio.com. Right now, we're going to be having DJ Double Six in the mix, and I'll be finishing up the show with my mix. FunkFellasRadio.com.
And you are now listening to Funk Fellas Radio.